Are you looking to expand your business internationally and reduce your tax burden? Maybe setting up a company in offshore is a solution that you're looking for, but the question is, where should you set up your offshore business? And in today's video, I'm going to tell you cheapest offshore companies to incorporate. The first thing that you need to think about is just where to set up the company. There are a couple of things that you should think about. The first and foremost is the ease of setting up the company, how you need to do it in person, can you do it remotely, and also the costs. So the costs are very important, especially if you're just diving into your international structure. You don't want to really invest a lot of your money and where you don't know how it exactly is going to work for you. So I would really advise to start somewhere that's very cheap, even if it's not 100% resolving all your issues. The benefits will definitely outweigh the costs that you're going to be spending on that. There are a couple of things that you have to pay attention to when you're choosing the offshore jurisdiction for your business. The first one is reputation. There are some countries that are very reputable and like old money, or business hubs that are maybe a bit on a more expensive side, but even on the cheap offshore jurisdictions, you can still find very reputable countries like BVI, British Virgin Islands, or maybe Belize. Seychelles is a bit of under question at the moment, but still, depending on what your purpose is for this, like if it's just you trying to try this new thing and see how it works for your business, definitely these jurisdictions are a very good option for you. I would say that with the reputation, it's important to think about the banking options, because there are some jurisdictions that I've personally faced where the country is like rather reputable, but with a couple of like new recent developments, the banking is not very good there. And what I mean by that is the banking options for your corporate account will be limited due to the jurisdiction that you are in. For example, Seychelles, you may not have as many banking options as for BVI. You also need to think about like the banking options that are outside of the country and locally. Like for example, in Isle of Man, there are lots of good banks in the country, so you have good options there, but maybe not every country or every jurisdiction at offshore country has that, because mostly those are focused on getting foreign investors, and those investors sometimes prefer to work with foreign banks or the banks that they are more familiar with. So it's very important to think about banking options with the reputation. And one other thing that I would pay attention to in making this choice is the time that is required from you. Your time is money, especially when you're going for something that is cheap. You do not need to compensate that by just spending a lot of time. And there are some countries where it's very easy to set up a company, like the initial process isn't long, or maybe even if it's long, the time that you need to file the forms and get everything set up is not very long. But on the other hand, maintenance is quite long. There are some tax and compliance forms that you have to fill in, or annual returns that you have to file, or financial statements that you have to provide. I see a lot of countries right now becoming a bit more strict with the requirements. Some countries are establishing reportings for like UBO, ultimate beneficiary owner. Some countries are establishing requirements to update, like let's say crypto payment or some additional things. There are some countries that are enforcing some laws that have been there and set in place but have not been enforced. For example, you may be asked to have a resident director, and for this director to be more involved in your day-to-day operations, or for this director to sign things or have the documents for your management meeting, etc., to make sure that you can actually prove that the nominee director, which in this case does not really act as a nominee, has been making decisions, and these decisions have been made in the jurisdiction. So this is very important to know in advance, because it's something that may be a deciding factor for you to choose between different jurisdictions. When I'm thinking about cheap offshore companies to incorporate, the first one that comes to my mind is BVI, so British Virgin Islands. I would say that it has a very good reputation compared to the price and on general scale, it's a very reputable country. Banking options are also rather good. As for the prices, I would say that like there are some government fees for initial opening, around 2,000 British pounds, and I would say around 1,600 British pounds or 1,800 British pounds for the annual maintenance and renewal. These prices really depend on what you're getting. Like, do you need one director, one local director, or you are going to be setting it up yourself? Do you need a corporate secretary, or do you need or just a resident address? Like, what are the scope of the service provider's input that you need? So that's why the prices may vary, but most of the fees are government regulated, so you're not going to be anywhere you go, you're going to be paying the same amount. The next country I would say that comes to mind is Belize. It is also rather reputable, and the banking options may be a bit limited compared to BVI, but still rather easy to incorporate. So depending on your activities and on your scope, I would say that Belize is also a very good option. One other cheap jurisdiction that comes to mind is Seychelles. In past we used Seychelles a lot more, but recently with some bank restrictions, I think that we've had people complain. People that have been maintaining a Seychelles company had been complaining about the banking situation there, how sometimes certain banks refuse to work with the Seychelles company, or maybe just freeze their assets or make things a bit hard in a day-to-day business operations. Having said that, I think that it's very important to keep an eye out on the cheap offshore jurisdictions and where you can incorporate companies fast and cheap, and especially considering how the international scene changes and there are new requirements popping up all the time. I think it's very important to keep up with the changes and be up to date. So subscribe to our channel and be up to date on any changes in offshore company formations.